Welcome to Sleepy Science. You clicked this video to find out how big Alpha Centauri is, and you deserve a real answer, not a number, not a chart. Here is the strange part. Alpha Centauri is the closest star system to Earth. Yet no human mind has ever pictured its true size correctly. Not even close. Because Alpha Centauri is not a star. It is three stars moving together through space. So far apart that light itself takes years just to cross the gap between them. What you see in the sky is already outdated. By the end of this video, you will realize something uncomfortable. Alpha Centauri is not just far. It is large in a way distance cannot explain. If you want science told as a story and mysteries that don't rush to end, subscribe to Sleepy Science. The name Alpha Centauri feels small the moment you hear it. It sounds neat and contained like a label on a shelf. Two words, clean, easy to say. Your mind turns it into a dot before you even notice. That is how humans survive space. We shrink things by naming them. We turn something vast into a sound our mouth can make. Once it has a name, it feels closer. Once it feels closer, it feels manageable. Alpha Centauri. Say it slowly. Your brain places it somewhere nearby, just over there. Not here, but not unreachable either. The closest star. The neighbor. But that picture is already wrong. When you look up at the night sky, you do not feel size. You feel placement. You feel direction, up there. To the left of that other star. Near enough to point at. Your eyes flatten everything. They turn depth into light. They turn distance into sparkle. So Alpha Centauri becomes a point like the rest. The name helps that illusion stay strong. Alpha sounds like the first. Centauri sounds specific. Together they feel contained. As if the thing itself agrees to be small, but space does not care what we call it. Imagine standing alone in a dark field at night. There are no buildings, no roads. No sound except your breath. You see a single light far away. One light feels simple. One light feels easy to understand. Now imagine walking toward it. You walk for hours and it never grows larger. You walk for days and it still looks the same. The light does not rush toward you. It does not welcome you. It stays distant as if distance is part of its nature. That is what Alpha Centauri really is. Not a dot. Not a point. A light that refuses to behave like nearby things. The mistake starts early, in school books, on charts, on screens where stars are drawn as circles and labeled with names. Everything fits on one page. Everything looks friendly. Your mind learns that space is big but organized. Stars have places. They have labels. They behave. Alpha Centauri becomes a fact instead of a presence. Closest star system, 4-point-something light years away. End of thought. But 4 light years is not a distance you can imagine. It is a sentence that ends curiosity instead of opening it. Light years sound technical, but they hide time inside them. 4 years of non-stop motion at the fastest speed allowed in the universe. No pauses, no slowing down, no turning back. The name does not tell you that. The name does not warn you. So Alpha Centauri stays small in your head. A neighbor star, a future destination, a dot on a map. But maps only work when the space is made for them. The universe was not. When early astronomers named Alpha Centauri, they were not trying to shrink it. They were trying to survive it. They needed a way to talk about the sky without getting lost inside it. Names were tools. Anchors. Over time, the anchors became cages. The more often a name is repeated, the less strange the thing feels. Alpha Centauri becomes familiar without ever being understood. That familiarity is dangerous, because familiarity tells you that you already know enough. If you could remove the name for a moment, something changes. No Alpha, no Centauri. Just light coming from a place that is not here. Without the name, your mind has nothing to hold on to. No label, No shortcut, just distance that refuses to behave. Picture Earth shrinking beneath you, not falling away fast. Slowly. Cities fade, oceans blur. The planet becomes a colored marble. Then that marble becomes a grain of sand. Then nothing you recognize remains. Now imagine traveling outward, not fast, slow enough to notice time passing. Years go by and the sun is still close enough to feel important. Then decades pass and it becomes just another star behind you. At no point does Alpha Centauri rush toward you. It does not announce itself. It does not grow dramatic. It waits, not because it wants to be found, but because waiting is what distance does. The name never tells you that Alpha Centauri is not one thing. It does not tell you it is a system. It does not tell you there are spaces inside it so wide that entire solar systems could disappear between them. The name smooths the edges. It keeps the mystery quiet. Humans love that. We prefer mystery that stays polite. Mystery that fits inside words, but space does not stay polite for long. If you imagine Alpha Centauri as a location, your mind relaxes. Locations have borders, they have centers, they have edges. Alpha Centauri does not. It is not a place you arrive at. It is a region you enter and keep entering. The stars inside it move. Not quickly, not in ways that feel alive. They move on time scales that ignore human lives completely. A full motion that feels like a gentle circle to the system takes longer than civilizations last. Empires rise and disappear while the stars barely change position. The name does not show that. It freezes the system into a single idea. That is the habit. We compress space until it fits thought. Then we stop thinking. Alpha Centauri sounds small because your brain needs it to be small. If it felt as large as it truly is, the idea would not settle. It would stay open, unfinished. And unfinished ideas make humans uncomfortable. So the illusion stays, the dot stays, the point stays, but here is the quiet truth. Distance does not behave the same way when no one is watching it, without observers, without names, without labels. Space does not arrange itself to be understood. It simply exists. Alpha Centauri is not close because we say it is close. It is not small because we named it. Those are human tricks. Out there, beyond the comfort of language, the system keeps its scale, its silence, its refusal to be reduced. And once you notice that, the name starts to feel wrong. When people hear that Alpha Centauri is the closest star system, something relaxes inside them. Closest sounds friendly. It sounds reachable. It sounds like a promise. The word closest belongs to daily life. The closest store, the closest house, the closest road home. Closest usually means help is near, but space does not use the word the same way. Alpha Centauri is just over 4 light-years away. That sentence sounds clean. It ends quickly. Your mind accepts it and moves on. But 4 light-years is not a distance you walk or drive. It is not something you measure with steps or wheels. It is time stretched until distance disappears inside it. Light is the fastest thing that exists. Nothing outruns it. Nothing catches it. It does not get tired. It does not stop. And still, light needs more than 4 years to travel from Alpha Centauri to Earth. That means if Alpha Centauri vanished right now, you would not know. For years, the sky would lie to you without meaning to. Distance stops being about space at that point. It becomes about waiting. Imagine sending a message, not a signal, not a beam, a simple hello. Then imagine waiting 4 years to know if it arrived. Then waiting 4 more years to hear anything back. 8 years for a conversation that lasts seconds. Closest begins to lose its warmth. If you tried to travel there, the numbers stop behaving. The fastest spacecraft humans have ever built would take tens of thousands of years. Not because we are lazy, because speed is expensive in the universe. Every bit of speed demands energy. Every increase fights against mass. Space does not give discounts for effort. So the journey turns into a story instead of a plan. A story where no one finishes the trip. A story where generations pass without seeing progress. You launch, you age, you die. The ship keeps moving. At some point, no one remembers why it was sent. 4 light years sound small until you replace meters with years. Years stack differently in the mind. They carry weight. They carry lives inside them. 4 years is a long time to wait for anything. 4 years is enough for cities to change, for people to leave, for memories to fade. And that is only the travel time for light. Not for bodies, not for machines. Closest becomes a word that only works on paper. When people say Alpha Centauri is near, they are speaking from a human map. A map built for walking, for driving, for flying. Space ignores that map. The solar system itself is already so large that light needs hours to cross it, and that is our local neighborhood, our front yard. Between the Sun and Alpha Centauri is not emptiness in the way people imagine. It is a deep, silent stretch where nothing changes quickly enough to feel alive. You would pass through regions where stars are only distant glows, where nothing marks progress, where movement feels like standing still. Time becomes the only proof that anything is happening. This is where closeness breaks apart. Two things can be nearest and still unreachable. They can share a cosmic address and never interact. Alpha Centauri and the Sun are neighbors in the galaxy, but neighbors who will never visit, never exchange heat, never trade matter. Their closeness is statistical, not emotional. Stars do not care who is closest. They move through the galaxy on paths that cross and separate without intention. Closeness is temporary. Right now, Alpha Centauri happens to be the nearest system. In the distant past, it was not. In the far future, it will not be. The title of closest is always changing hands. If you imagine space as a room, Alpha Centauri feels like the next object over. But space is not a room. It has no walls, no corners, no center that agrees with us. It is more like time frozen into shape. That is why distance turns strange when you stare at it long enough. You stop asking how far and start asking how long. How long would it take to reach it? How long until light tells us the truth? How long until anything we do matters there? And the answers are always longer than a human life. This is where connection fails. Closeness in space does not mean relationship. It does not mean influence. It does not mean awareness. Alpha Centauri does not know we exist, not in any meaningful way. The light reaching us carries no memory of Earth, and Earth sends nothing back that arrives in time to matter. Two systems can be closest and still be alone. That is the quiet reality hidden behind the word nearest. It promises access, but it delivers isolation. Alpha Centauri is close only when distance is measured without time. The moment time enters the picture, closeness collapses. What remains is a gap that cannot be crossed by effort, only endured by patience. And patience is something the universe has. Humans do not. For a long time, Alpha Centauri was treated like a single light. One name, one point, one presence in the sky. That made it easier to imagine. One star feels familiar. Our sun trained us for that idea. But the closer you look, the idea breaks. Alpha Centauri is not one. It never was. It only pretended to be. When astronomers began to look more carefully, the light separated. Not suddenly, slowly, like shapes emerging from fog. What looked like one became two, then something else appeared nearby. Dim, quiet, easy to miss. The system did not announce itself. It revealed itself by refusing to stay simple. Alpha Centauri A and B sit together, bound by gravity. They move around a shared center like partners who never touch. Their motion is steady, predictable, almost polite. They do not glow the same. One shines a little stronger. The other answers with slightly less light. Together they balance each other without ever speaking. From a distance, they blend into one idea. From closer, they remain separate. Two stars locked into a long dance that lasts longer than memory. Then there is Proxima. It does not stand with the other two. It lingers farther out, faint, red, often forgotten. Proxima does not orbit the pair the way planets orbit stars. Its path is wider, looser, as if it is deciding whether to stay. For a long time, no one was sure it belonged. It seemed too distant, too detached. But gravity does not ask for permission. Proxima is part of the system, whether it feels like it or not. Together, these three stars form Alpha Centauri. Not a point, not a dot, a structure. They move through space as a group, not tightly packed, not neatly arranged, but connected. Watching them feels strange. Their motion looks intentional, as if they know where they are going, as if the paths were chosen. But that feeling comes from us, not them. Stars do not plan. They do not decide. They follow forces that existed before thought ever did. The slow orbit of Alpha Centauri A and B takes about 80 years. An entire human life fits inside one gentle loop. For the stars, that loop is nothing. Proxima moves on a scale even slower. Its journey around the pair takes thousands of years. Civilizations rise and fall while it barely changes position. From Earth, this motion is invisible. From space, it is undeniable. What feels frozen to us is active on a scale we cannot feel. This is where story instincts begin to mislead. Three stars moving together feels meaningful, like a family, like companions, but there is no awareness inside the system, no recognition, no memory. Gravity pulls, mass responds, motion continues. The stars do not know they are three. They do not know they are closest to Earth. They do not know they have names. Alpha Centauri A burns its fuel without concern. Alpha Centauri B does the same. Proxima flares and cools in its own rhythm. They influence each other only through force, not intention, not care. Still, the image stays powerful. Three lights moving together through a dark sea. Bound, aligned, unaware, it challenges a human habit. We like to believe systems exist for a reason. That motion implies purpose. That structure implies meaning. But the universe does not promise that. The Alpha Centauri system exists because it can, because physics allows it, not because it was meant to be observed. If no one had ever looked up, the stars would still move. Their paths would remain the same. Their light would still travel outward, uncaring of destination. This is the unsettling part. A system can be complete without knowing it exists. It can function without awareness. It can persist without story. Alpha Centauri does not perform for us. We perform meaning onto it. Once you see that, the system changes shape in your mind. It stops being a neighbor. It stops being friendly. It becomes something quieter, something older, something that will continue long after names stop being spoken. Three stars, one system, zero awareness. And yet they move together through the dark as if it matters. If you could watch Alpha Centauri for a few minutes, nothing would seem to happen. The stars would hang in place. No spinning, no rushing, no drama. They would look fixed like lights painted onto the dark. That stillness is the trick, because Alpha Centauri is always moving. It just moves on a clock that ignores human lives. Alpha Centauri A and B circle each other slowly. So slowly that the word orbit feels misleading. It is not a fast spin. It is not a loop you can feel. It is more like a gradual change in position that only becomes clear after decades. If a human watched their entire life, the motion would barely register. The stars would shift just enough to suggest something is happening, not enough to feel alive. This is where movement becomes unsettling. We expect motion to announce itself. We expect speed. We expect change to feel energetic. But the universe does not perform at human speed. One full path around their shared center takes about 80 years. That is a whole lifetime. Birth to death fits inside a single gentle curve. A person could be born, grow old, and disappear, while the stars quietly continue one turn. No pause, no acknowledgement. Proxima's movement is even slower. Its wide path around the other two takes thousands of years. Entire histories vanish inside one incomplete motion. From the star's point of view, nothing special is happening. From ours, everything is disappearing. This is where the feeling shifts. Motion stops being exciting. It starts to feel indifferent. The stars are not frozen. They are just patient. Their movement does not rush to be seen. It does not speed up for observers. It does not slow down to explain itself. It happens whether anyone notices or not. If you try to imagine this motion, your mind resists. It wants reference points. It wants markers. But there are none. There is no before and after you can feel, only continuous change stretched across time. This kind of movement removes urgency from the universe. Nothing needs to happen soon. Nothing needs to arrive. The stars are already where they need to be. Humans struggle with this idea. Our lives are built around deadlines, days, years, moments that matter because they end. In Alpha Centauri, moments do not end the same way. An orbit that lasts longer than a life does not feel like motion at all. It feels like permanence. But permanence is an illusion too. The stars are burning fuel. They are aging. They are slowly changing in ways that take millions of years to notice. Their stillness hides motion inside it. This makes the system feel eerie rather than peaceful. Something is happening, but not for us. If speed is measured by change per second, Alpha Centauri feels slow. If speed is measured by change per lifetime, it feels overwhelming. That difference matters. Speed is not universal. It depends on how long you last. To a mayfly, a single day is a long existence. To a mountain, a million years is a brief moment. To a star, a human lifetime is a blink that barely registers. So when we say the stars move slowly, we are really saying we move quickly. We rush through our time while the universe takes its own pace. This changes how motion feels. It stops being a sign of life. It becomes a sign of scale. The stars do not hurry because they do not need to. They are not racing decay. They are not aware of endings. Their paths are set by forces that do not count days. Gravity does not care how long something takes. It only cares that it happens. This is why Alpha Centauri feels unsettling when you think about it long enough. It moves without urgency, without intention, without concern. Human lives disappear inside its motion without leaving a mark. The stars do not notice who watched. They do not notice who wondered. They continue their paths smooth and silent. And once you understand that, motion stops feeling comforting. It stops feeling alive. It becomes a reminder. Speed only matters to things that run out of time. Alpha Centauri feels far. It feels small in the night sky, a bright dot among many. But the truth of its size is impossible to hold in your mind. When you try to picture it, everything fails. The sun is already enormous, a sphere of fire that could swallow planets whole, and Alpha Centauri A is not much smaller. It burns with similar strength. Its light carries energy enough to outshine everything near it. Planets, if any circle these stars, would look tiny in comparison. They would be small and fragile, almost invisible. Even if they were Earth-sized, they would vanish against the glare of the stars. And then comes the emptiness between them. Vast stretches of nothing that are still part of the system. Space does not pause between the stars. It expands endlessly. You cannot measure it with familiar units. Meters and kilometers fail. Light years become abstract. Numbers are supposed to help. 4.3 light years. 100 billion kilometers across the orbits of the stars. Masses measured in suns. Temperatures in thousands of degrees. But the numbers feel dishonest. They do not capture scale. They compress what cannot be compressed. They try to make the infinite finite. You imagine Alpha Centauri as a place you could visit. And then you remember it is 3 stars, each larger than our sun, moving in a vast emptiness. Even if you shrank down to the size of a spacecraft, the space between them would feel like an ocean. And oceans are something we can cross. These distances are not meant to be crossed in any human sense. Scale stops making sense when you compare everything together. Planets, stars, gaps, orbits, the light traveling through nothing. All of it stretches the imagination until it cracks. Think of Earth, a blue marble spinning in space. Compare it to the sun. The sun swallows the Earth with room to spare. Now compare the sun to Alpha Centauri A, almost the same size, almost the same fire, almost the same presence in emptiness. Now imagine all 3 stars together, a moving triangle in darkness, each one massive, each one claiming space, and still there is nothing between them. A void so deep you cannot measure it with human thoughts. Numbers can describe, words can point, but neither can give a sense of this scale. Your mind wants to put it in a box. It wants reference points. It wants edges and walls. But there are none. Alpha Centauri exists without edges, without ceilings, without borders we can feel. The emptiness is part of its size. The space is as important as the stars themselves. And the emptiness is so big, it cannot even be called empty. It is the scale that holds the stars in place, the space that allows motion, the void that makes everything around it seem tiny. Time is part of size too. A single orbit of Alpha Centauri A and B takes decades. Proxima takes thousands of years. Their motion stretches across time as much as space. Time becomes part of scale, and then numbers feel smaller than reality. You might try to imagine how long light takes to cross the system. Minutes, hours, days, weeks. Nothing matches the feeling. Even light seems slow when you try to hold the space in your mind. Planets in this system would have shadows that shift slower than life itself. Days on their surface would pass in ways we cannot fully grasp. Their gravity would pull subtly, almost unnoticed, compared to the pull of the stars themselves. And all around them is space. Not darkness in a picture, not emptiness that comforts, true space. A void so vast it becomes part of the story itself, an invisible character. The distances between objects are bigger than any planet, bigger than any thought we can easily imagine. This is where words begin to fail. You try to explain the size to someone else. You speak of light years and kilometers. You speak of mass and temperature. They nod, but their minds do not expand. The words are shadows of reality. Numbers are placeholders for something too large to feel. Even pictures betray you. Diagrams compress. Charts shrink. Everything we draw on paper becomes flat. Flatness lies. It cannot hold the dimension of true scale. Alpha Centauri is alive in its immensity, but not in a way that moves or speaks. Its size overwhelms understanding. It is not just bigger than Earth, not just bigger than the sun. It is bigger than comprehension. Once you reach this point, perspective collapses. Everything familiar, distances, sizes, comparisons, loses meaning. A mountain, a continent, even our solar system seems small against the vastness of 3 stars and the space that holds them. Trying to grasp it becomes a different kind of journey. You stop thinking in meters or kilometers. You start thinking in absence, in space that could swallow planets without noticing, in emptiness that shapes the stars' lives more than they shape themselves. Size is no longer just a number. It becomes experience. It becomes feeling. The feeling that what you thought you understood was tiny and what seems tangible is nothing. And at that moment, scale stops helping. It stops guiding your mind. It begins to distort understanding. The more you try to measure, the less real it becomes. Everything collapses into something you can see but not hold. Something you know exists but cannot imagine completely. Alpha Centauri is not big like a mountain, not big like a country, not even big like our solar system. It is big in a way that escapes comparison. It is big because it contains gaps too vast for thought. It is big because time stretches across it. It is big because nothing around it can claim relevance. You realize then that any attempt to reduce it, to make it friendly, understandable, or small, is a human habit. Alpha Centauri does not need comprehension. It does not pause for recognition. Its size exists independently, indifferent to how it is named, described, or imagined. Scale stops being a tool. It stops being helpful. It becomes a mirror of our limitations. And once that mirror is held up, the distance, the emptiness, the stars themselves feel strange. Unreal yet present. Alpha Centauri is immense, not in numbers, but in a way that refuses to fit inside a human mind. And that is a truth that cannot be simplified. It can only be felt. Barely. Everything you see from Alpha Centauri comes to you as light, not the star itself, not the heat it gives off, not the motion of its planets, only light. Light travels fast, faster than anything else we know, faster than sound, faster than any spaceship. It moves across the void without stopping, without waiting. But even light takes time. 4.3 years just to reach Earth. 4.3 years before you see what happened. That is the key. The light you see tonight is already old. When you look at Alpha Centauri, you are seeing the past, not the present, not the exact moment as it exists now. A version of it frozen in time, traveling across the emptiness. A ghost of reality. This changes everything we think about observation. We imagine stars as they are. We point our eyes and assume truth, but the truth is delayed, always delayed. Light becomes the messenger of events we cannot witness directly. It carries information across space, but it carries nothing else. It cannot carry intent. It cannot carry awareness. It is only a record. When we see Alpha Centauri glowing brightly, we are seeing it as it was 4 years ago. It may have changed slightly since then. Its surface may have shifted. Flare activity may have happened. Planets may have moved a little in their orbits. We will never know until the light from those changes reaches us. Proxima Centauri is even more deceptive. It is dimmer, slower, quieter. Its light takes just as long to reach Earth in a way that feels almost timeless. And the faint glow we see could be different by the time we register it. This is why looking at the stars is always a kind of time travel. We are always looking back, always seeing something that already belongs to history. Our observations are never immediate, never live, never in the moment. They arrive late. They carry truth that is slightly outdated, always slightly behind reality. Think about that in human terms. Imagine sending a message to a friend who lives 4 years away. By the time they receive it, you may have changed completely. By the time they reply, you may no longer even remember the original thought. That is how space communicates, slowly, imperfectly, by light alone. Even the fastest telescopes and cameras cannot solve this. Even the most advanced satellites cannot outrun the delay. The present remains unreachable. We can only wait to see the past. This is why reality becomes a fragile thing. When we measure distance, we use light years. When we observe events, we see history. Nothing is immediate. Nothing is certain. When Alpha Centauri shines, It is speaking to us with delay. Every photon arriving is a piece of the past, a message sent without awareness, a record of energy that already belongs to history, and that shapes our understanding of the universe. We like to think we see things as they are, but the universe is always ahead of us, always one step beyond perception, always moving faster than our minds can grasp. The more you stare at the stars, the more this becomes obvious. Their light is constant, steady, unbroken, but what it shows is always behind. We never witness the now of a star. We never hold the moment it occupies in space. Even the closest star is unreachable in that way. Even the fastest light cannot bring the present to us. We are forever seeing what has already happened. Alpha Centauri does not care that we watch. It does not know our eyes are pointed toward it. Its light continues through space whether we are there or not. And every photon that reaches us tells a story that has already passed. This is why observation is always late. We can measure, record, and calculate. We can imagine the star's position in the present, but that is imagination. The reality we see is the reality of the past. Even motion becomes an illusion. Stars move while we watch. Their positions shift slowly, imperceptibly. By the time light arrives, the motion has already happened. By the time we measure, the event is over. And still we watch. Still we calculate. Still we try to understand, because seeing is all we have. Light is our only messenger. Without it, Alpha Centauri would be a dark emptiness. Without it, there would be nothing to record, nothing to study, nothing to wonder about. But even with light, we are never fully present. We are never in the exact moment. We are always observers of history, always late to the events we most wish to witness. This makes the universe feel slower and faster at the same time. Slower because we cannot keep pace. Faster because it continues without pause. Alpha Centauri moves on, and we see only the echo of its motion. It also changes how size feels. Distance, scale, and time all blur. Light stretches across the emptiness, carrying its message. But by the time it reaches us, the system may have shifted imperceptibly. Planets may have moved. Stars may have rotated. And we would not know until light brings the next piece of history. The universe teaches patience this way. Observation is a game we cannot win. We can only witness what has already occurred. We cannot speed up light. We cannot step into the present of Alpha Centauri. We are always late. And that is a strange thought for humans. We live in moments, measuring life in seconds, minutes, and hours. We move quickly through days, watching change happen around us. The stars do not. They take centuries to complete arcs that we cannot feel. We live lifetimes within a single orbit. So light becomes not just a way to see. It becomes a storyteller, a narrator of events we cannot reach, a witness to things long gone. Every time we look at Alpha Centauri, we are reading a story written years ago. We are seeing the past unfold in real time, and yet we mistake it for the present. That is the quiet, unsettling truth of observing the universe. We are always behind, always catching up, always late, and still we cannot stop watching. We cannot stop waiting for light to arrive, because even though it is old, it is all we have. Everything we see is history. Everything we touch is present. Everything we imagine reaches toward what is now, but will never arrive in the moment. Alpha Centauri continues its story, unaware that it has an audience. Its light tells us a tale we can never fully participate in. Observation is always late, and understanding comes only from accepting that delay. Among the three stars of Alpha Centauri, Proxima stands apart. Smaller, dimmer, farther from the pair, almost like a distant relative watching from the shadows. It does not glow as brightly, and yet it holds the most attention, because it has a planet, Proxima B, a world orbiting this faint red star, close enough that humans whisper the word habitable. A single word, small and hopeful, that carries more promise than it can truly deliver. When scientists first studied it, the idea caught fire. Could a planet like Earth exist so close to a star? Could life, as we know it, survive there? Could there be oceans, rivers, perhaps something breathing under alien skies? The idea is seductive. It feels close. It feels possible. It tempts the imagination to stretch across 4 light years and back in a single thought. But the reality is harsher. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf. It is not gentle. It flares. It releases bursts of radiation far stronger than the sun ever does. A planet in orbit is not bathed in warmth. It is blasted in deadly light at irregular intervals. And the orbit itself is unforgiving. Proxima B does not spin like Earth. One side always faces the star. The other side remains in perpetual shadow. Half of the planet is locked in heat. Half is frozen in darkness. The illusion of habitability dissolves quickly. When you imagine this world, you must erase comfort from the picture. No breeze, no mild nights, no gentle twilight. If life exists there, it would not resemble life as we know it. It would not resemble hope. It would not reach for the stars. It would survive quietly, hardened, adapted in ways that seem alien to our minds. And still, we cling to the word habitable. It is easier than imagining a planet shaped by extremes. It is safer than picturing life struggling under constant assault. It lets curiosity carry a glow of hope, even if that glow is illusionary. Proxima B orbits closer to its star than Mercury does to the Sun. It completes a year in just a few Earth days. Time there is compressed in strange ways. Days are not measured in sunrises and sunsets. They are measured in extremes: burning light, freezing dark. Radiation constantly sweeps the surface. Magnetic fields may protect the planet partially, but not entirely. The environment is a test of survival, not comfort. The world is alive, maybe, but it is not friendly. And if life is there, it exists in a form we might not recognize. No forests, no oceans filled with fish, no gentle winds carrying scents. Instead, life would adapt to the harsh pulses of light and heat. Life that endures without luxury. Life that is small, hidden, and quiet. The planet spins slowly. Its rotation is locked. Water, if it exists, pools in shadowed areas or evaporates instantly on the bright side. Temperature swings are extreme. One hemisphere might burn at thousands of degrees. The other freezes completely. The notion of balance, like Earth provides, does not exist. Even the word planet feels misleading. It is a world in name only. A world hostile to comfort. A place where survival is a challenge that never ends. We imagine habitable planets as safe. Proxima B is not safe. It is relentless. It tests every assumption we make about what life can endure. Yet because it is so close, it tempts human minds. We want to believe. We want to hope. We name it, give it a label, and the label becomes a veil. The word habitable floats over the surface like a gentle promise. But beneath, the truth is unyielding. Even the light reaching Earth from Proxima B lies to us. It carries no warning. It shows nothing of storms that blast its surface. It carries no sense of survival against constant extremes. It only tells us that the planet exists, that it moves, that it is there. We see its potential through human eyes. We interpret its signals through imagination. The reality is indifferent. If life thrives there, it does so silently. It does not seek us. It does not attempt communication. It does not dream of exploration. It simply survives, hidden in the cracks of a world we can barely imagine. The extremes make it almost poetic. A planet forever caught between fire and ice. A life that bends but does not break. A star that flares and tests its orbiting companion constantly. Even thinking about it this way changes the story of Alpha Centauri. The system is no longer three stars dancing in gentle arcs. It becomes a laboratory of survival, a place that challenges what it means to live, a place that exists without care for our expectations. And that is the truth about habitability. It is not a guarantee. It is not an invitation. It is a possibility that carries struggle, danger, and relentless extremes. Proxima B may be called habitable, but the word is an illusion. It is human shorthand for potential, a veil that hides harshness, a word that makes curiosity more comfortable than reality. The real story is in the survival that may exist without recognition, in the life forms that may endure without hope, in a planet that spins silently under the flare of a star, doing nothing to accommodate anyone who watches from 4 light-years away. Alpha Centauri is no longer just light. It is fire, shadow, and extreme endurance. Proxima Centauri reminds us that closeness does not mean safety. It reminds us that life, if present, would be strange, not familiar, not hopeful, not comfortable. And that is the quiet lesson. The universe may allow life to exist, but it does not make life easy. It does not frame life for our understanding. It simply continues. And if life has emerged on Proxima B, it is not what humans expect. It is survival without mercy, without comfort, without hope as we know it. The more you imagine this, the more the word habitable fades. It is replaced by reality, by harshness, by endurance, and by the understanding that life, if there, would be almost unrecognizable. Proxima B is not an invitation. It is a challenge. It is a planet that tests imagination, a world that reminds us how distant understanding is from reality. And in that realization, the illusion of habitable dissolves completely. What remains is a place that exists beyond hope, beyond comfort, beyond human expectation. A place that survives in silence, unknown and unconcerned with our wonder. Alpha Centauri does not wait. It does not pause for observation. It does not stop for humans to notice or measure. Even as we stare at its light, the system is moving through the galaxy. We imagine stars as fixed points, frozen in the sky, a dot that always shines in the same place. But that is a comforting illusion. The universe does not stay still. Stars move, slowly to our eyes, yet with immense speed across the emptiness. Alpha Centauri travels through space at over 20 kilometers per second. Its neighbors do the same. The solar system itself moves through the galaxy in its own steady path. What feels close is actually fleeting. The Sun and Alpha Centauri are near each other now, closest neighbors in 4.3 light-years of space. But that is temporary. Cosmic time ignores our schedules. Distance changes without warning. Even the brightest stars, the ones we imagine as eternal, are not fixed. They pass by each other like strangers walking down a vast, empty street. Occasionally their paths align. Occasionally they seem near, but no connection forms. No interaction lasts beyond the brief intersection of orbits. Alpha Centauri will not always be our nearest star system. In thousands of years, it will move away. Other stars will take its place. Other lights will claim the title of closest neighbor. The system we think of as familiar is temporary in human perspective. The idea is unsettling. We assume proximity means stability. We think closeness implies connection. But in the galaxy, closeness is a passing moment. It is as fleeting as a shadow across the floor. From our view on Earth, Alpha Centauri shines quietly. It seems eternal. Yet every second, every photon reaching our eyes carries a system that is moving away. Not abruptly, not violently, but inevitably. Imagine standing on a field watching someone walk slowly along a horizon. At first they seem near. They seem within reach. You might even imagine calling to them. But every moment they move further away, not quickly enough to panic, but steadily. Eventually they fade. Eventually distance swallows them, even if their shape remains visible. That is the story of Alpha Centauri and the Sun. Even the closest things leave. The galaxy is dynamic. Stars are not parked in place. They orbit the center, interact with gravity, and move through the dark like endless travelers. Some pass near each other. Some travel in groups. Some move in isolation. Alpha Centauri is part of a local cluster of stars. It travels with purpose dictated by gravity and momentum. The solar system travels alongside, but in its own path. Their relative motion creates moments of closeness and distance, like cosmic breathing. 4.3 light-years is a number that feels constant to us, but in reality, it is changing every second. The system we see tonight may be slightly farther tomorrow, slightly closer yesterday. Time stretches and bends across space, making the idea of nearest temporary. This is why our perception of the universe is incomplete. We see light frozen from years ago. We measure distance as if it were stable. We give names and meanings as if closeness were permanent. But Alpha Centauri moves on. Its 3 stars orbit each other, and the system itself glides through the galaxy. Even Proxima Centauri, the faint red star with its planet, moves away with time. Nothing remains in place. Closeness in space is not a promise. It is a coincidence, a brief intersection of paths that happen to align at this moment. Tomorrow, those paths will separate. The title of nearest neighbor will belong to another star. The realization is quiet but profound. Even the nearest things, the ones we feel familiar with, eventually leave. Time and space do not wait for recognition. They move independently of our expectations. Distance becomes relative. Alpha Centauri feels close because of light and human perspective, but it is already on its way elsewhere. Closer to some stars, farther from others. The sky is a constant river of movement, and we are only a small observer along its banks. Even our lifetime is insignificant in this motion. By the time a human reaches old age, Alpha Centauri may have shifted enough to make a noticeable difference in distance and position. By the time civilizations rise and fall, it will be far from the spot we consider near. The stars themselves do not notice. They are unaware of our observation, our calculations, or our hopes. They move because that is the natural order. Their paths are dictated by gravity, mass, and momentum, not by recognition or intention. This is the quiet lesson of the system moving away. Closeness is temporary. Even the nearest neighbors depart. Even those we call familiar will leave us behind, eventually. It changes the way we think about space. It changes the way we think about relationships between celestial objects. Distance is not permanent. Proximity is not safety. Even light does not freeze motion. The stars teach patience, but also impermanence. They remind us that nothing stays in place forever. The night sky we see is a snapshot of motion that will continue long after we are gone. When you look at Alpha Centauri tonight, understand this. It is moving, always moving. Its closeness to Earth is temporary. Its light shows us what it was, not what it will be. And in time, it will belong to another neighborhood in the galaxy. The nearest things leave, even stars, even those that shine brightly and quietly in the sky, even the neighbors we think are fixed. The galaxy continues. We remain small observers, watching moments that will pass. And Alpha Centauri moves on, indifferent, unstoppable, inevitable. Humans have always looked at Alpha Centauri and imagined being there. Not as a dream, not as fantasy, but as a challenge. A point in the sky that feels close yet remains impossible. Attempts have been made. Small probes, ideas sketched on paper, concepts too fragile to survive reality, yet stubborn enough to exist in minds. There was the idea of tiny spacecraft propelled by lasers, sheets of reflective material, so thin they catch light like a sail. Light pushing a craft across the void, inch by inch, faster than any chemical rocket could manage. The concept is elegant, almost too simple, yet it stretches our technology to the edge of imagination. Other ideas aim for fractions of light speed, a quarter of a percent, a tenth of a percent. Even at these speeds, journeys last centuries. Human lives are too brief to witness the arrival. Generations would watch a message leave and die long before it reaches its destination. Projects have been proposed that outlive their creators. Missions designed not for completion, but to persist. To continue moving toward Alpha Centauri long after the people who imagined them are gone. A dream built on patience, endurance, and absence. The attempts are quiet. They do not make headlines like dramatic discoveries or breakthroughs. They are slow, methodical, almost invisible against the scale of space. No rocket roars into the night. No crowd gathers to watch departure. It is a subtle, patient reaching. Even when machines are launched, the act of starting is not the same as arriving. Sending a probe is a gesture, not an accomplishment. It is the opening line of a story whose ending will never be read by the one who begins it. Each attempt is proof of human curiosity, proof that even when distance and time render success unlikely, effort persists. Humans build sails, fire lasers, calculate trajectories, and wait. Not for glory, not for recognition, not for immediate results, but because the act of reaching itself matters. This creates a strange paradox. We may reach Alpha Centauri in effort or in data sent, but arrival is always beyond reach. Even the fastest spacecraft would take thousands of years to cross the void. Even a tiny probe moving at a significant fraction of light speed cannot report back in a single human life. And yet, humans persist, because reaching is not measured by arrival. It is measured by action, by the ability to send something into the void toward a destination that will never wait. Laser sails reflect light endlessly. Probes carry memory and instruments, but no consciousness. They are small extensions of human curiosity, reaching into emptiness without knowing if they will succeed. We pour thought, calculation, and hope into objects that may never interact with the stars. Some proposals go further. Concepts of miniature spacecraft swarming in numbers, each with its own mission. A cloud of tiny explorers, like seeds cast into the wind of space. Statistically, some might reach. Some might survive the dangers of interstellar space. Most will vanish unnoticed, dissolved by cosmic radiation, collisions with dust, or navigation errors. Human attempts to reach Alpha Centauri are also experiments in patience, in imagination, in understanding the limits of life and technology. They confront the reality that the universe operates on scales far beyond human perception. And still, we try. We cannot stop looking at the nearest star system and thinking, maybe, there is a way. Maybe we can reach, even if arrival is impossible. Every laser fired, every sail unfurled, every calculation done is a whisper across 4 light years of darkness. A way of telling the universe, we notice, we try, we exist. It is quiet work, and that quietness feels fitting. Nothing in space cheers for success. Nothing waits in anticipation. The void is indifferent. Yet we persist in trying, almost in defiance of that indifference. Even reaching is a different kind of story. It is about testing limits, about proving that ideas can move even if they cannot arrive. The act itself becomes a message to ourselves, a message that curiosity matters more than completion. We measure distance in light years, but our efforts measure in centuries. Not human centuries, not human lifetimes. Centuries that stretch beyond memory, beyond expectation, beyond concern. And when a probe leaves Earth, it carries more than instruments. It carries human intention, hope, and curiosity. All of it directed toward a point of light that has always moved, that continues to move, and that will continue to move long after humans forget. The attempt becomes almost philosophical. Reaching becomes proof of vision, not success. It is a gesture toward the infinite, a test of patience, a statement of persistence. Alpha Centauri does not wait. It does not pause for our probes or our calculations. It continues through space, indifferent to every effort we make to touch it. Yet humans continue, because reaching is not about arriving. It is about daring to send something across the impossible, knowing the void does not care, knowing that light itself moves slower than curiosity. And in that quiet persistence, the story of reaching begins. Not the story of touching, not the story of success, but the story of human attempts. Small, fragile, persistent attempts against a backdrop of immensity. Even if no probe ever arrives, even if no signal ever returns, even if generations pass before any chance of contact, or none at all, reaching becomes its own purpose. Arrival is irrelevant. Alpha Centauri remains distant, eternal, and unyielding. Yet humans continue to aim, to plan, to dream. Reaching into the dark, knowing the stars will not wait and that the void will not respond. And that is the quiet truth of human attempts. The journey begins even when the end is impossible. Reaching is action. Arrival is a myth, and that is enough. When you look at Alpha Centauri tonight, it feels close. It feels special. It is the nearest star system, our neighbor in the vast dark, but the universe does not see it that way. Distance, when measured on a cosmic scale, begins to collapse. 4 light years is enormous for humans, unimaginable. Yet for the galaxy it is barely a step, a blink, a single heartbeat. Alpha Centauri is no longer the center of attention. It is one system among billions. Stars, clusters, gas clouds, dark matter. The Milky Way stretches across hundreds of thousands of light years, carrying systems, each with its own motion, its own story, its own light. The more you consider this, the less Alpha Centauri seems extraordinary. Its 3 stars, its faint planet, its light traveling across space. These are details that vanish in the enormity of the galaxy. Even the sun, which feels immense to us, is just another point of light among countless others. When you imagine the galaxy, perspective begins to change. Distance between stars, between systems, becomes relative. 4 light years is close only when compared to human experience. 4 light years is tiny when compared to the movement of the spiral arms, to the journey of stars orbiting the galactic center, to the scale of clusters moving together through voids. Alpha Centauri has no claim to importance. It does not stand out. It does not pause for observation. It is absorbed into the fabric of the Milky Way, a small system moving along with countless others. Even the light it emits, so bright to our eyes, is just a drop in the ocean of starlight. The galaxy shines with billions of suns, each carrying energy, heat, and the same story of distant light. Our perception of closeness and uniqueness is human. It does not exist for the stars themselves or for the Milky Way. When distance collapses in the mind, the feeling of importance fades. Alpha Centauri was once a destination in imagination. It was our closest neighbor, our potential bridge to another system. Now it becomes just a waypoint among infinite others. The galaxy removes individuality. No star, no cluster, no cloud of gas has permanence as a singular object. Each is part of a vast network of gravity and motion. Each is pulled and shaped by forces too large to notice. Alpha Centauri is carried along, unremarkable yet persistent. Importance is local. The Sun matters to Earth. Earth matters to us. But the galaxy does not honor proximity. It does not measure significance by closeness, brightness, or even life. It moves, and each system is swept along. Even the concept of a neighbor becomes meaningless. In human terms, Alpha Centauri is next door. In galactic terms, it is just one more star among billions, moving, aging, shining, fading. The distances we emphasize become tiny in comparison to the space that separates clusters and arms of the galaxy. The stars continue. They orbit the center. They rotate, flare, shine. And we imagine their importance, forgetting scale, forgetting context. When you expand your view, Alpha Centauri loses its centrality. It is no longer the nearest or the brightest. It is not a goal. It is not a destination. It is absorbed by something far larger than imagination can hold. The galaxy moves in silence. Alpha Centauri moves with it. The Sun moves with it. The spiral arms turn and billions of stars follow, none standing alone. In this view, significance becomes a human invention. It does not exist in the stars themselves. We begin to see the truth. Proximity does not equal importance. Closeness does not grant relevance. Even the most familiar systems are small parts of something immense. Alpha Centauri shines brightly, but its light is a whisper. It reaches us across 4 light years, yet its story is dwarfed by the galaxy. Even a supernova in a distant part of the Milky Way can outshine the system, reminding us how small and fleeting it really is. This perspective can feel unsettling. We place importance on the nearby. We hope for connection. We imagine reaching out and touching the stars. But the universe does not honor these human desires. Importance is local. It is measured by the effect on nearby systems, by interaction, by consequences that we can feel. Earth matters to life on Earth. The Sun matters to planets orbiting it. Alpha Centauri matters because of light that reaches us. But beyond that, it is just another system moving in the galaxy. Even attempts to reach it, human probes and ideas, do not change this. The galaxy does not pause to watch our actions. Our gestures are tiny, momentary, lost against the vast flow of stars. Alpha Centauri is a story we tell ourselves. It is close enough to name, to study, to imagine. But in reality, it is absorbed by the galaxy. Its individuality is swallowed. Its presence is a detail among billions of others. Scale collapses, and we see the truth. Closeness is perception. Importance is relative. And what seems monumental in the mind is often insignificant in the universe. We cling to the feeling of significance. We hope that being near a star system gives meaning. But the Milky Way reminds us otherwise. It is vast. It is indifferent. It moves. And Alpha Centauri is no longer special. Its light, its motion, its presence, all become ordinary against the immensity of the galaxy. What matters is only local influence. The rest is context, scale, and perspective. Even our fascination with it is human. The stars themselves continue, unaffected, unchanged. The system persists because of gravity and momentum, not because anyone notices. And in that realization, distance loses its power. Closeness is fleeting. Importance is fleeting. What we measure, what we cherish, is local. The galaxy does not assign value. Alpha Centauri, once our nearest star, fades in perspective. It is part of a greater story, moving with the galaxy. We observe, we imagine, we attempt to understand. But in the vastness, it is just one system among billions, indifferent to all. And that is the quiet truth. The importance of stars, of light, of distance, exists only where attention falls. Beyond that, the universe continues. Alpha Centauri continues. And significance is local, not universal. Alpha Centauri exists even when humans are not looking. It does not need names. It does not need measurement. It does not pause because someone is observing or thinking about it. The three stars continue in their paths. Alpha Centauri A and B orbit each other slowly, almost imperceptibly. Proxima hangs in the distance, circling its companion with patience that feels eternal. Their motion has no audience, no applause, no recognition. It is silent, steady, and unbroken. Fusion continues at their cores. Hydrogen burns into helium. Energy radiates outward. Light escapes into space, unbothered by whether anyone sees it. Heat spreads, shaping planets and surroundings, yet it does so without notice. Time continues. Days, years, centuries pass for the stars themselves in ways humans cannot feel. Their lives stretch across eons, and our moments are invisible to them. The universe does not mark milestones. It does not celebrate birthdays or anniversaries. It does not pause at the discoveries of observers on distant planets. Imagine the system without our awareness. No telescopes pointing, no cameras snapping, no scientists measuring distance, brightness, or motion, no probes launched, no names whispered. It is still Alpha Centauri. It is still vast, still immense, still moving. Light continues to shine. Orbits continue to rotate. Time continues, indifferent to observation. Even Proxima B, if it exists, continues its orbit around the red dwarf. Days pass, with one side burning in light and the other frozen in shadow. Radiation pulses strike the surface. Planets spin, temperatures shift, and if life exists, it continues too, quietly unseen. The galaxy itself moves, carrying Alpha Centauri along. Nearby stars shift. Distances change. The Milky Way flows around its center. All of it persists without requiring anyone to notice. Human concepts of closeness, scale, or importance vanish. Without observation, the system simply exists. The stars do not pause for discovery. They do not hesitate because a human mind wants to understand. They continue as they always have and will for eons. Even light, which we rely on to tell stories, continues uninterrupted. It streams outward in all directions, carrying energy, history, and information. But it does so without intention. It has no consciousness. It does not know it is being read. The idea of measurement fades when you consider this. Distances, sizes, speeds, these are only important to observers. Without someone to interpret them, they are meaningless. Alpha Centauri exists as mass, energy, motion, and light. Nothing more. Its stars have no awareness. They do not notice each other in the way living beings notice one another. They do not acknowledge time in a conscious way. They do not wait for anything. Their existence is quiet, continuous, and complete without us. Imagine the system 1,000,000 years ago, or 1,000,000 years from now. It is still Alpha Centauri. Its fusion continues. Its orbits continue. Time continues. Human concepts like importance, closeness, or discovery are irrelevant in this frame. The universe does not honor our observations. It continues regardless. Even planets, if present, are part of this quiet continuation. Their surfaces change. Their atmospheres shift. Weather, if it exists, moves without notice. Seasons, rotations, orbits, all unfold without awareness. Alpha Centauri does not exist for us. We exist for ourselves. We measure it, name it, and imagine it. We send probes, launch missions, and study light. But the system does not pause for recognition. In fact, the stars may not even recognize each other. Alpha Centauri A and B orbit, influenced by gravity, yet their motion is not conscious. Proxima follows its own path. The system functions without comprehension, without intent, without awareness. Fusion will continue for billions of years in the larger stars. Eventually, hydrogen will run low. Stars will evolve. They may swell, cool, or die. All of this unfolds silently. No one will mark the moment when fusion slows or when a star dims. No calendar, no observer, no record. The universe does not pause for milestones. It simply continues. Even light from the system moves outward, never slowing, never waiting. A photon leaving the star today may reach some distant system millions of years in the future. It carries the history of the star, but it does not carry meaning. It is a record without understanding. Time and space are indifferent. The orbits, the fusion, the motion, the light, they exist independently of awareness. Even Alpha Centauri itself has no sense of its own movement or existence. It simply is. Human curiosity, measurements, names, and ambitions fade when faced with this truth. The system's story does not depend on us. It will continue perfectly, quietly, without pause, without care, without recognition. Even if the galaxy itself changes over millions of years, Alpha Centauri will continue in its own path. Stars will form, die, collide, and scatter. Planets will orbit, melt, or freeze. But the process will not stop because we observe or because we forget. Our awareness is fleeting, it fades, moments pass, generations come and go, and still Alpha Centauri continues. There is a strange comfort in this. The stars do not rely on us. They do not measure significance by human standards. They exist quietly as they always have. And in that continuation, awareness fades from the story. Humans' curiosity, measurement, and observation all are absent, yet the system persists, orbits continue, fusion continues, light streams outward, time moves on. Alpha Centauri is complete without our recognition. It does not need an audience. It does not pause for attention. It does not wait. The quiet continuation of the stars reminds us of scale. It reminds us that existence is not defined by awareness. It is defined by motion, energy, and persistence. Alpha Centauri will continue as it always has. It will continue long after human observation has ended. Its stars, planets, and light will persist, silently, independently, without pause, and in that silence awareness ceases. Our presence does not alter the story. Our curiosity does not change the system. The universe continues unmarked by observation. Alpha Centauri continues. Time continues. And we are left only with the light that reaches us, a messenger from a story that has no witness. Alpha Centauri is big, not in the way we usually think, not in kilometers or miles or numbers on a chart, not in light years or meters or astronomical units. It is big because it cannot be contained in the mind, because when we try to picture it, our imagination fails, because distance, motion, light, and time all combine into something beyond understanding. We measure it in numbers, but numbers deceive. 4.3 light years sounds precise. Two stars orbiting each other at thousands of kilometers per hour sounds measurable. Yet these facts only hint at reality. They are shadows of understanding. Alpha Centauri is bigger than any measure we can hold. We try to visualize it, a dot in the sky, a faint glow, a nearby point of light, but even the smallest telescope cannot show its scale. Even the best simulations cannot make it feel human-sized. It is vast beyond feeling. Consider the stars themselves. Alpha Centauri A is larger than the Sun. Alpha Centauri B slightly smaller. Proxima is tiny by comparison, yet it has gravity, motion, and perhaps a planet that survives extreme conditions. The system is a miniature galaxy in itself, a collection of worlds and energy moving through time and space. And then consider the space between them, the emptiness that seems nothing, the distances between stars that make travel almost impossible, the void that swallows measurement and makes the mind stumble. It becomes impossible to think of Alpha Centauri as small. It is not a dot. It is not a nearby neighbor we can reach or hold in imagination. It is a place where human time, scale, and perception collapse. Even light, the fastest thing we know, does not make it feel smaller. The photons that reach Earth have traveled for years, carrying history, motion, and energy across emptiness. Even observing that light, we cannot grasp the full scale. And it is not only physical size, it is temporal, it is motion. It is the way stars orbit each other in slow, elegant patterns that humans cannot feel. It is the persistence of fusion at the cores of the stars, continuing for billions of years. It is the story of planets orbiting quietly, enduring radiation, heat, and shadow. It is bigger than our lifetimes. It is bigger than our imagination. It is bigger than human patience. It is bigger than the numbers we give it. Even attempts to reach it highlight the scale. Lasers, sails, probes, fractions of light speed all fail to capture its immensity. It teaches us that distance is not just physical. Scale is not just measurable. It is conceptual. It is the feeling of something too vast to hold in thought. Alpha Centauri is big because it cannot be fully known. Even knowledge itself has limits. We can catalog its stars. We can measure its light. We can simulate orbits. But full comprehension is impossible. Our minds reach for analogies. We compare it to the sun. We compare it to planets. We compare it to space within our imagination. But all of these are inadequate. All of them fall short. Because the true scale is relational. It is the way light takes years to travel. The way fusion burns steadily for eons. The way orbits unfold over millennia. The way a planet might survive extremes without hope or comfort. The way the system moves through the galaxy, indifferent to observation. It is big because it continues without end, because it exists independently, because it cannot be altered by our thoughts, desires, or attention. It persists in time and space, carrying its story without needing an audience. Even imagining the system fails to capture its magnitude. We try to shrink it into human-sized terms. We use words like close, neighbor, or light years. We assign names and labels. We send probes. We watch. And yet each of these attempts highlights the vastness. We reach but cannot arrive. We measure but cannot grasp. We observe but cannot hold. Alpha Centauri is big because it exceeds every boundary we place around it. Physical, temporal, mental, emotional. And then there is the quiet fact that its story does not conclude. Unlike a book, there is no ending. Unlike a journey, there is no destination. Fusion continues. Orbits continue. Light continues outward. Time continues, stretching beyond comprehension. Human awareness is fleeting. Observation is temporary. The universe does not wait for understanding. And Alpha Centauri does not stop because we struggle to hold it in mind. It is bigger than our curiosity, bigger than our attempts to reach it, bigger than our need to know. It exists in its own frame, indifferent to comprehension. And that is the way scale works in the universe. True magnitude is not defined by numbers or labels. It is defined by the inability to fully grasp it. Alpha Centauri is big not because of kilometers or light years. It is big because it cannot be held completely in thought. We can tell a story about it. We can send probes. We can watch its light. We can imagine its planets. But full understanding remains just out of reach. The system becomes almost a mirror of the universe itself. Vast, silent, persistent, unknowable. Even when the narration stops, the system continues. It does not pause for our comprehension. It does not fade when we look away. It simply exists. And that is the final truth. Alpha Centauri is big. Big in ways numbers cannot show. Big in ways words cannot capture. Big in ways thought itself fails. It is bigger than imagination. Bigger than human life. Bigger than curiosity or ambition. And in that, the story quietly ends. Not because the system stops, but because narration stops. Alpha Centauri continues, time continues, space continues, and the scale, the immensity, remains beyond human grasp. It is big simply because it cannot be fully held in thought. It exists in silence, in motion, in light, in time, in space. And the story does not conclude. It simply continues as all things in the universe do, forever beyond comprehension.